Yeah, a warm welcome. So very nice to have you here, and I think you can't do something better than immersing into a talk on a rainy morning. So thank you very much for coming. Warm welcome also to Berlinale Talents in general, as you can see. So for those who are not part of Talents, we are dealing with the collectives this year. We kind of forming one, but of course we try to bring you in touch with as many collectives, as many people who are working collectively as possible, and here we have another way to do it, and a wonderful occasion to meet these people here. And I wish you a pleasant 1.5 hours of conversation. It's really nice to see you all here in Hall 3, and it's very nice to have Viola Shafik with us. Thank you very much for the moderation. Enjoy.
Thank you, Florian, for having us. It's really a great pleasure to be with the Talents. And of course, it's all about sharing our experiences. The session will be, as agreed, run as following. We will have first a short talk that I'm giving, like 10 to 15 minutes, to contextualize the issue that is at stake today, and then we will continue with a debate and introductions of each of the guests. Just on a very quick note, I have 3 wonderful cineasts and filmmakers from Nedick Vamoosh from Morocco, and Mark Lotfi and Mohammed El-Hadidi from Egypt. And I will introduce them, of course, later on. Now, the idea why we are talking about collectives today, my inspiration came actually from attending the Egyptian Revolution, and as I'm also I'm a film scholar as well, not only a filmmaker, so I was interested in learning more about the relationship of revolutions and cinema, and I run also, among others, into the topic of film collectives. And it seemed to me at first that, film collectives is very much related to revolution and revolutionary movements. And also my first impression, of course I knew about some of the historical collectives, but I thought, wow, this is maybe really a very much recent phenomenon. And now, after then looking a bit deeper into the topic, and after studying it a little bit, I discovered that this is not really the case. It's neither a recent phenomenon, nor is it really related to revolution. So, allow me to give you a sort of very short introduction into what I found out, and what maybe can later on inform our discussion. My problem is now I'm getting old and my glasses, so I have either the choice to see you or to read. So I will now have to choose reading, but still be sure I'm, getting it. Trying to keep in touch with you. Okay, historically, cooperatives and collectives and collectivism are likely to be associated with anti-capitalism, if not Marxism. This is another, prejudice, if we want to say so. Organized collectivism, which eventually crystallized in different waves of cooperativism in the course of the 19th century, has been mainly narrated as a response to the Industrial Revolution and its massive workforce exploitation in the then leading industrial nations, namely England, France, and Germany. Moreover, since the October Revolution in Russia and after World War II, cooperativism has been widely used in Eastern European labor states to fight and oppose social inequality and to build an economy that was believed to offer more equal opportunities to everyone. However, cooperativism is an economic organization for classes or individuals who are relatively weak economically, and it is not necessarily related to any party or ideological current. Focusing on the capitalist and non-capitalist divide, other reasons for collectivism, such as nationalist protectionism, tended to be disregarded in research. One prominent case, according to Edward Mayo, was Finland. In the first phase of industrialization, a still predominantly agricultural country, it relied extensively on cooperativism in almost all social economic fields as a means to resist imperial Russian supremacy and for the sake of national self-determination. Thus, collectivism has been proposed also as a remedy to either infrastructural deficiencies and or as a means to circumvent and ease social and economic hierarchies as well as political oppression. In other words, cooperativism may be regarded more generally as a means to enhance social, political, and economic empowerment. On another level, ethnographers have identified it as an ancient and existentially important element of social organization, prevalent in different historical and social contexts, such as periods of external threats and in environments where trade and mutual exchange play a prominent role. Finally, cooperativism has been exerted in different ways. It was not always a voluntary act of solidarity, but could be also based on collectively enforced rules. Many societies developed already in pre-modern times forms of collective organization to provide social security, guarantee a just distribution of revenues, and preserve professional standards such as the guilds, for instance, in the Middle Ages, or collective field work in many agricultural societies, and this holds true until today. In Egypt, the country with the longest film history in the Arab world, one strand of independent collectivism was the introduction and creation of cooperatives for Egyptian peasants in 1908, modeled after the French and British system and first initiated by a lawyer called Omar Lutfi in cooperation with Prince Hussein Kamel. By 1939, the country had 800 societies and 750 of them were concerned with agricultural needs. Cooperativism, was, as defined by Ibrahim Rashad, was characterized by open membership, and this now is important to listen to. It was characterized by open membership, democratic structures, one man, one vote, interest in education, distribution of surplus to members in proportion to their transaction, secondary or and non-profit orientation, and this is also important. However, after national independence in Egypt and with the ascent of the populist force of the free officers in 1952, cooperatives as well as their twin movements, the trade unions and syndicates, gradually lost their autonomy, or as Asaf Bayat noted, remained in the hand of corporatism. To a certain extent, this applies also to artistic initiatives which had been formed up to then. Numerous collective formations had come into life since the first introduction of film in Egypt in 1896. 1913 already saw the establishment of the Association of the Friends of the Theatre. Professional syndicates followed, such as the Actors' Unions, the Union of Film Professionals, created in 1943, the Film Industrial Chamber. Avant-garde initiatives were also part of the picture. In December 1938, 31 writers and artists, lawyers signed a manifesto coined by Georges Hénin, Long Live the Degenerate Art, which was very polemic, and even some of this collective, one person was also jailed afterwards. After independence in 1952, the so-called Film Association came to life, as well as in 1968, the New Cinema Society. Well, I'm speaking about this just to let you know that this is a very rich picture, and this holds true, of course, also for other countries, but in Egypt it's particularly rich because it had the main film industry in the region. In 1972, this is important, the Documentary Cineasts Association was established, and it was established in correlation with the Union of Arab Documentary Filmmakers, founded in Baghdad in 1975 and in Leipzig at the Doc Film Festival. So, this is just for a few to mention this. In fact, then, as for Europe, Catherine Rodet considers the 1960s and 70s as the âge d'or of militant cinema. So this is the more universal in international context. One of the most notable examples is the film collective Slon, created in 1967 around Chris Marker, who is hopefully known to you all, which with its decided anti-imperialist and anti-capitalist stance. It later was reorganized to become Iskra, a production and distribution house known for its third worldist solidarity films on Latin America, Asia, and Africa. Based in Belgium, it sought to avoid politically motivated retributions in France. So they actually had problems with censorship and production. Just like the Giga Vertov group established by French filmmaker Jean-Luc Godard and political activist Jean-Pierre Gorin, Slon was developed in the context of the 1968 protests in Europe. Numerous collectives sprang at the same time in Latin America. The Bolivian Grupo Ucamau, established also in 1968 by, among others, Jorge Sanginés, produced several films as well as agitational and theoretical material compiled in Theory and Practice of a Cinema with the People by Sanginés, among others. It was inspired by Sergei Eisenstein's revolutionary film style, and the films addressed American imperialism, workers' struggle, among other, and the uprooting of the indigenous population. The Arab world saw, of course, also the emergence of militant film collectives, and now this is another strand related to the wars of liberation, such as the group Farid in Algeria during the War of Liberation, and the Palestinian Film Unit. Both launched audiovisual counterattacks against the colonists, colonization, the occupying forces, and discredited, among others, the cruel practices, but also were trying to cement and create a new national culture. More contemporary militant collectives I would consider is the Egyptian Mousserine, created, and Syrian Abu Nadara, which came into existence along with the Arab uprising in 2011, and have voiced a strong criticism of mainstream media in correlation with exploitative international power structures. So, militantism, however, is, as stated earlier, in the case of socialism, just one side of the picture. Reformist film collectives, such as the British Documentary Film Unit, established by John Grierson in 1933, hosted by the GPO, have also a long history. They tried to introduce a different film style and aesthetics in combination with an outspoken social consciousness. The aforementioned Egyptian Film Society, with their criticism of Egyptian film industry, I consider also as reformist. Sigma 3 in Morocco, which was established in 1971 to create a genuine Moroccan films, and which produced just only one film, Weshma, broke unfortunately apart because of a misconception of authorship and the auteur policies of Western film festivals, and this could be an interesting point to talk about. More recent Arab collectives, short or long-lived, however, have at times proven to be highly useful and productive in facilitating alternative film culture, to mention only from the 1990s, Beirut, DC in Lebanon, Semed in Egypt, in the new millennium Exit in Tunisia, the Jordan's Amman Filmmakers Cooperative in Mauritania, the House of the Cineasts in Saudi Arabia, Talashi, and the Sudan Film Factory, the Sudan Film Club, among others. Now, thank you for your patience and for listening. We'll continue now with the introduction of our guests, and we'll try then to approach two main queries. One of them is the organization of co-ops and film collectives indeed useful, and can it facilitate different and alternative infrastructures for filmmakers and for the industry? Is that possible? And the second question would be on the political level, do have film collectives indeed an emancipatory potential? Can they be liberating or no? Now, let me introduce my dear guests. We will also give each of them the opportunity, or not each of them, because Mark Lotfi actually, we didn't know that he is going to be coming, so he will join us, but we will show clips from our two other guests. First of all, Nedick Vamoosh. He is an award-winning filmmaker in the middle from Morocco and based in Marrakesh, writer and photographer as well. In 2011, Nedick directed and produced his first film, My Makhzan and Me, a web documentary about Morocco's February 20th uprising. Nadia's other works include Timnadin and Rif, a performative documentary produced collectively by the community of Imidia in the southeast of Morocco. His latest work and first feature, Amosu, screened among others in ITFA and is going to screen in Berlin, by the way, soon at the Film Festival. Now, to my left side, Mohammed El-Hadidi. He is also part of a film collective. He is an Egyptian cameraman and filmmaker, co-founder of Rufis Films, an independent production company and a collective of 5 filmmakers based in Alexandria, who co-directed the film The Mice Room and produced 2 other feature-length documentaries and several shorts as well. Mark Lotfi on the very left, also based in Alexandria, Egyptian filmmaker, blogger, writer, producer, and he directed and edited and produced several shorts and documentary films. He is the owner and manager of Fig Leaf Studios to support the independent cinema movement in Alexandria. And we will learn more about each of them. First of all, let's start with Nedick Vamoosh. Could you please introduce your project and the film a bit more, and we can see, would you like the trailer to run first, or would you like to speak? Sure, yeah. Okay, so can we run the trailer? Amosu.
Thank you, Viola, and thank you to the Berlinale for inviting me and giving me an opportunity to speak a little bit about my work. This is actually the first film that I made for cinema. It was the first. It's also, I think, it's the first film where I think I'm starting to find my own language, my own cinematic language, and it's the result of several years of research, actually, into cinema from below, looking at how cinema can be polyphonous. How do we get rid of this Western, hero-driven or narrator-driven element in cinema? I think that what I'm concerned with, at least in my work, is how do we make cinema less authoritarian? Because I don't know if you noticed, but when you were looking at the trailer, it was being projected all on. You're so many people here, right? And you all have your opinions, but for 3 minutes, I was the only one talking to you in a way, right? While you're watching the trailer. So looking at how cinema can actually express this polyphony of voices that exists in the world, and especially from my perspective as a Moroccan, to express it in a way that's ours. And so when I talk about research, it's research into the oral arts. In cinema, in film school, they show you Renaissance paintings. What does the Renaissance have to do with me, right? We have our own art history, and so it's looking at that art history. It's looking at, anyway.
But can you tell a little bit more about your own, trajectory? I mean, you started. Actually, you were studying in the US, so how did it develop that you ended up kind of being with a community in, can you also name the region where it is exactly?
It's in the southeast of Morocco, and it's one of the most marginalized regions in the country. And it's a very mineral-rich region, so it's very wealthy, but people there are very poor. And what's unique, at least for this region to me, is that it's the last region in Africa to actually fall under colonial rule. until 1933. So you still have a very strong collective memory there of autonomy and people not having been ever ruled by any sultan or emperor throughout most of history. So you have a very, people who have this very strong attachment to their own autonomy, which is why I found it, I have this attraction to this place. But my trajectory, exactly, I actually started out with making surf videos. And I went to film school in California. It was very nice, right? The palm trees and all that. But I was also in California when the 2011 revolution started. And I was following it on Twitter, and I needed, and so as soon as the summer holidays came, I had decided I was going to go back and make a film about the February 20th movement uprising in Morocco. Now, many people know about Egypt and Tunisia, but Morocco, what was happening in Morocco was less known, mainly because imperialists love Morocco. It's like the nice country in the region for them. We just do we're like the good, the student in the front of the class. So yeah, come privatize, come do whatever you want. Yeah. And in the protests, we actually formed a collective called the Guerrilla Cinema Collective, and we were consisted mainly of anarchist youth, and our idea was, who is the National Center for Cinema to tell us whether we will make films or not? Why do we need permits? So it was about civil disobedience and going and filming without the state permits, and you have to have state permits in Morocco to be able to make a film. So, and this is still what I'm doing, even though the collective unfortunately broke up. And then I went on to make a short film called, and I took a break for a while because I felt that I was just making films really quickly and not really thinking about the language and all that. So I took the time to research and to watch a lot of films, and it was about the same time that when I was in the United States that Trayvon Martin was killed, and then I started to have a vision on. I met a lot of people of color in the U.S. that made me think about other questions besides just what was happening. It was beyond human rights. We were looking at racism and its links to class, and all these ideas were coming together in my head in the U.S. And then it was really, I think, really marked by my white friends who didn't see the need to go and protest against these policemen that were killing people in the streets, and that I think really shook me. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Nadia. We will, no, it's perfect, thank you, don't worry. Yeah, so I would like to continue with Mohammed El-Hadidi. Would you like to show the trailer of your collective film first, or, yeah? Okay, so the mice room. Be so kind to tell us a bit more about the circumstances, how this film was made and your involvement in it, before we move then to Mark, who has also some involvement.
Big involvement.
But start with your own first, please.
Yes. So The Mice Room, we worked on this film between 2010 and 2013. It was premiered in Dubai Film Festival in 2013, late 2013. But we started working on it it's a film co-directed and co-produced and co-written by 6 filmmakers. So we the 6, we met during the Jesuit school program between 2009 till 2010. It was a 1-year program, and we studied there. And then after we finished the school, we decided that we had this idea. We didn't decide. We had this idea that we need to, why not to make a feature film together instead of each one of us make his own short film and this. And this idea came to us because during the workshop in 2009, Ibrahim Battout, the Egyptian filmmaker, was shooting his film in Alexandria, and Hawi. Yes.
Magician.
Yeah, the magician. But I think he translated to Howie also.
Yeah,
Ah, okay. So he was shooting his film in Alexandria, and we worked with them, some of us, and we got inspired. Okay, why not? We don't do our film together, and then we decided, okay, and we sit together and started something like a writing workshop or something like this. We had a theme. The film has 6 characters. Each character is facing his own fears or loneliness in a way or another. And we started to work on the script, and after having a draft from the script, we had nothing except the 6 of us and a T2i Canon camera, and that's it. And we doesn't know anything about what's next. At the time, we knew that something existed in Alexandria called Fig Leaf Studio, running by Mark Lutfi, and we didn't know him personally except Zidane. He only knew him, and we talked with him, and immediately he got excited and he supported us and he told us, okay, let's go, let's do it. And since then, this was summer 2010, we started shooting. And during the shooting, the revolution came, we stopped a bit, and then we continued working on the film. And then it was premiered in Dubai, and then went to many other festivals after this. And during the process of making the film, this was, the Mice Room was our school. This is where we learned really how to make films and how things goes. And during the process, it wasn't a very easy process because we were 6 filmmakers with 1 editor. So you can imagine 7 persons in a room. It was really crazy. But at the end, we managed to finish. And during working on it, we had another films and other ideas to work on. I made my short film during it. And they helped me a lot in the film, not in the same way of the Mice Room. We collaborated in my short film, but in another way. Mark also was involved in my short film. And then we had this documentary called I Have a Picture that talk about the oldest extra in the Egyptian cinema and probably in the cinema in the whole world. And we worked on this also. So we started from this 3 years to build Roofies. And it started with 6 filmmakers, and the idea of it also was that we need to make our films and support the independent scene in Alexandria. And along with Fig Leaf, we collaborated during the year and until now in so many films. Yes, that's it.
Thank you so much. So perfect transition to Mark. So Mark, can you kindly introduce a bit your work a bit and your own trajectory?
Yeah, it's very hard to like if someone just tell about yourself and about what you did and what you didn't do. So for me, I will try to explain as a story. Like we began being interested in films together. Like we were a group of filmmakers. We were interested in films together between 2003, 2004. And it just began like that. We all want to be filmmakers and we don't know anything about film. So let's be together and try to find a way to do it. And as Hadidi said about the film, the film was his school or their school. So for Fig Leaf also or our school. And in 2005, we established the Fig Leaf Studios officially. I think it begins just with 4 people, and this year we are 18 person working together. And the idea from the beginning, was to try to do a kind of alternative, because it was just as simple like this. We don't want to go to Cairo. We don't want to work in the capital. We don't want to be part of this market. So we were in the beginning just thinking on that level, on the Egyptian market level. And the market in Cairo have its rules. It's great, but we just feel that we could not match with it. and it was for us at that moment, it was very much connected to the commercial market. So we felt we are not fitting, and it's better to have an alternative. In the beginning, it was, I could say, in the first 3-4 years, it was a lot of criticism and rumors about us from the industry that there is this young generations doing stupid things in Alexandria. It will never work. A lot of people try to do it. It will never work. And now these people who have been even saying that are just co-producing with us and working with us. I think it's hard to explain how it functions, even how I have been producing the Mushroom with Rufus. It just, they came to me and we spoke together. In fact, I didn't know them, so it's not just I trusted them at all. It's not about just trusting people you never know, but at the same time, it was the same idea that they are 6 filmmakers trying to do a film together. And this is putting on the table the questions that I'm expecting from you and from all of us, like why we work together and why we don't do it alone, and how to do it together. And is even these references we have in the credits, like, okay, this is a producer, this is a filmmaker, and this is the director, and even these titles, is it really functioning nowadays? Or we should reinvent cinema in our ways. We began to be known, I could say, by 2009. Like we have been working for 5-6 years. We just send the short movies. We are working on shorts, so sending short movies in the festival. Yes, people accept us in the festival, but still are dealing with us as individuals. By 2009, 2010, we begin to be more known, I could say. And by then, we begin to be really facing the industry, like really meeting with, really asking the real questions about ourselves and about our connection to all what's going on in the market. What kind of films we should do? Should we do the films that could say monitored and easily shown in the festivals? Are we because as we were discussing together, Hadidi and I, before the panel, that yes, you could say that the market or the industry wants you to be alone. It's better for the industry and the organization to deal with one person. So what the meaning of me working together? Why you are a collective? And it's has been a question that we could ask together and see if it's worthy or not. And yes, I expect more that we could talk together and with the audience about the question. But I could say that because when I searched in the German philosophy, who was really against collectivism, and I found that Nietzsche was really, because he was talking about individualism and how to be, that collectivism could be a kind of demolishing the self. But I could take also from Nietzsche that the idea of that he's always saying that there is no truth, and there is always interpretation of truth. So I think everyone needs to have the access on these kind of different truths through the collective. So there is no way to access the different interpretation of truths without being inside a group, and to really be open to each other and to function and work together.
Thank you, Mark. We will continue. We will continue more about the details also of how this works really concretely. Sure. So let me just ask Nadia now to explain a bit more, because I mean, I asked you to introduce yourself, but still, Amusu as a collective project, could you explain that a bit more? How and in what respect? Because now you sign as a director. But actually, when I saw the film in Agadir, it has as a title Nedick Vamoosh and the people of Imidia as directors. So how did that work?
It's is it working? Yeah. it was a process that's quite long and to explain maybe, but I'll try to make it as short as possible. When I went to Imedar, I immediately noticed that there was already this structure. So the film is about villagers who shut down a water pipeline to the biggest silver mine in Africa for 8 years in a protest camp that lasted, for 8 years. And the way they were organizing themselves was this, what we call Agrao, which is an indigenous Amazigh or Berber general assembly that existed long before colonialism. And
does the word come from agora, actually, from the Greek agora? Maybe?
I don't know if it,
or maybe
I think there is a relationship between the two, but which one
informed the other,
I'm not
we
sure.
don't know exactly.
Yeah. And it's basically this huge circle, and everyone discusses, and then they come out, and it usually functions by consensus. So it's not even by votes. Really, everyone has to agree to doing something to do that. So when I saw that as an anarchist, this is like the dream for me, you know. There's already a structure there. It's indigenous. It's ours. It's not a European structure. It comes from our land, and for me, the land is very important. So this was the producer. This was my boss. So we engaged with. It's not about going there and then superimposing a different structure and telling them, well, this is how we're going to organize ourselves. There's already this structure called Agrao. That's what we'll do. So Agrao then designated, by consensus once again, a group of youth who were, some of whom were able to read and write, some of them not, who would basically, and they called themselves the local film committee of Imedar. And the local film committee of Imedar was sort of the executive branch of the producer, which is the village, which is this big circle, Agrao, which includes children and old men and everyone. The local film committee takes care of the day-to-day tasks. So managing what time we need to shoot this, where, when, with whom. They're the ones with whom I discussed the budget, how we're going to divide up the budget, even distribution we do it ourselves. So even distribution, which festivals should we go to this festival? We got an invitation from Israel. Let's boycott or not? Of course, we boycotted. I had to slide that in. But
you trained them also for that. I mean,
right,
you gave them also know-how, right?
Exactly. That's why I said it's a long process to explain. So there's also the workshops, because for the collective to work properly, these are not people who are in film or interested in film. They have the struggle. They have their land to tend to. They have their work to go to. So. They're not watching films. If they do, they're watching TV. They don't know what a creative documentary is. So part of the process is screening films, holding workshops, so that they can make informed decisions with me. So it's not me saying, this is the best thing, this is what we do in cinema, and you have to listen to me because I know what I'm doing and you've never done cinema. No, here's what cinema is. I'll show you films. We'll work together, and then that way you can make, and sometimes they'll like bring up that, remember that film you showed us? We don't like this what you did here, because remember in that film you showed us this. So this makes, that way it prevents this power balance, breaks this sort of imbalance of power over, it's a sort of like a check on me, I think, the workshops. And then you have the creative agraos. So you have the production agrao, which is part of the movement's agrao. It's a political, social agrao, but also it has this task of production. And then you have the creative ones where the writing process happens We talk collectively about what we're going to film, how we're going to film it. It's not scripted, it's on the go, it's improvised. And then you have the agros for montage. And these are, this is more in the post-production. Once we have a rough cut, I go to them, we screen the film, and then everybody discusses it. We like this, we don't like this, you could do this better, etc. This is basically, in short, the structure.
Okay. Okay, let me move very quickly to Mark. Mark, I need to know a bit more about, the practical organization, and later I will come back also to Muhammad with the same question, because you say your collective has 18 people, but it's not that the 18 of you make one and the same film, like in the case of Maisroom. And actually, it's a company that you run, and you are the owner. It's not that this is, a collectively owned economic entity. So how do you kind of combine is it a Trojan horse, or what are you doing exactly? I mean, this company of yours, how does that, you're using let's say, a capitalist structure, but you're doing with it collective work. How does that function? Also in terms of power, the power, these different power levels that Nadia was addressing. Huh?
What I could say is that this paper thing that I did the registration myself. It's never considered an ownership, and all the revenue is shared between the people and between the members, if we could say, and also so all resources and all the materialistic stuff is shared in a way. Shared, I mean, they could consume it, they could use it. Sometimes in specific projects, you could say, because that's how things could be easier when it's getting bigger. Like in specific projects, things are splitted. So even these projects, I don't know anything, and there is 4 of us working on, and they are managing all the production and creative resources. And what you're talking about also about truth is, so I was also partner with them in that, not only partner as a person, but as Fig Leaf. So Islam Kamal, for example, who is a member in Fig Leaf, was the editor of the Maisroom. So this is how things function. If you want to know more, like in details how it's function, like how we see it at the end of the year and report everything of happened this year, and we plan for the next year. And in every project there is, I could say, a smaller group, a smaller collective, like a sub-collective from the collective that is working on this group. And I'm not the decision maker at all in these cases. So I'm a decision maker only in the projects that I'm part of the decision only from the projects I'm part in as a person. Just to continue. Yeah. So politically and economically, it's easier if the government deal with one person. So I just took the risk to be that person, but that doesn't mean I own everything.
Okay. So, I just wanted to also dwell a bit more on the idea of the idea of which role does people play within that filmmaking process, because what we learned is that cinema, as part of as it has become an art that is related to industry, it has relied very much also on the division of labor, which is typical for industrial and mechanized process. So how does a collective deal with that? Is it also, again, this kind of hierarchical organization of, and I'm mentioning this also because the idea of the auteur, which was really the pitfall for Weshma, for the Moroccan project of the 70s, the idea of this one person, but in fact the film was made really by a collective in terms of they wrote it together, they were all together also cooperating. So how did that work in the case of Maisroom and the other projects that you have realized?
So, if I understand your question, sorry. Okay, I'll start with the Mice Room. With the Mice Room, it was, as I told you, we were just exploring. We didn't have a clear plan or a clear ideology. We were playing as Mark said. The only thing that we only wanted to stay in our city. This is the place we know, and this is the place we like. So it wasn't a big deal or something. But and we started working on the script. So in the script, it was a workshop, a typical writing workshop. As okay, I come with an idea. Okay, we have 6 characters, and I come with okay, this is my character, and this is his simple story, and we developed this together. So at the end, and then we asked Mark to join, and Mark also participated with us in the developing of some of the stories, and then we had the script. And going to the shoot, okay, to each story, on the shoot we had the small structure, the classic structure of this is the director, this is the DP, and this is. And then, and in the beginning, we had this the picture of the film was okay. We will have some short films, one after something like Peri Je t'aime or something. So, but after we finished the shooting like this, and not after, but during the shooting, because if in this part, for example. I'm the director of photography, and Zidane is the director, for example. But I also am a co-writer with him, so I'm developing and I'm doing the role of the director with him. So we discovered this during the process that okay, where we personally we have the trust in each other to work and collaborate and forget about our egos, and this is. For me, the very important thing about the collectives. And in other projects after, okay, and then this was the shooting, and then in the editing, we had this idea, okay, we will forget about putting the film in segments, and we will mix it, as if you can say. And here we asked Islam Kamel to come and join us as an editor and work with us. And we sat, as I mentioned, the 7 of us in a very small room for months, for I think 13 or 14 months in a room, making around 17 or 18 cuts of the film. Because each time, for example, because now there's no one story. Now there's no one segment. There is the mood, the film, and the team, and the theme. So each time, okay, we have this cut, but oh, I love this shot, and it's out now, so we discuss it. And so it was a very long battle against our egos, and I think we won at the end because that's how it worked. And then after this, very quickly, after the Mice Room, we made different projects with different variation on collectives, because I believe we believe also, and we're also discussing this, me and Mark yesterday, that working collective doesn't have a one form or on one structure. Solid. It has to be always flexible. Otherwise, it will not continue, because it depends about the question that Mark mentioned, why you're doing this and how and what the project is asking from you, because the project itself, the film itself, has needs. It's not the ideology, and that's it. It's not that, okay, me and Viola, we're doing this, and we are the author, and we will do everything together collectively. And this was the case in the Mice Room. In the music, in the editing, we did all the decisions. We agreed on all the decisions. We had to reach an agreement for each decision. So the Mice Room can bear this, but other projects didn't. So we tried different variation on this.
Okay, so but now let us move very quickly to, well, the no, stay with me. The let us move very quickly now to the external factors, because I mean, you started the film before the revolution and the project, you know, the cooperation, and then in the end it turned out the film was finished 2 years later. That was around the coup. Yeah. Now, what happened now to you? I know that you even have been incarcerated for a very short time because of political activism that you didn't even, you know, sign for. But anyways, that's the usual procedure. Can you tell me what is now the fate within this very difficult political situation in Egypt and the very heavy clampdowns on opposition and on artists, actually destruction of artists' initiatives as well, along with all other collective works? What is your current situation?
As Roofies and Fig Leaf.
As Roofies and Fig, yeah. I mean, how do you deal with these pressures?
Okay, talking politically, it doesn't.
But really concretely, with regards to your entity, to your collective.
Yes, but okay, I don't see politically there is, because if you're an artist, if you're someone living in Egypt, it doesn't matter if you're doing it collectively or by your own, you're in danger. So, but for sure, it affects our spirit, our ideas, and how we see things. We're still working now. We have projects now. I'm here for a year to work on my script, and then I will come back and shoot my film there. We're still together. But it is what it is. As I was mentioning from a few minutes ago, you have to be flexible and deal with the situation, whatever it is. In 2011, we were up in the sky. We owned the street, and I remember this shot that I decided to put the chariot in the middle of the Corniche, a very big street by the sea in Alexandria, just because, not because that the shot needed this chariot or the dolly shot. I needed to make a traveling shot, but it wasn't that important. But I made it only because we had the feeling that this is our street, and I will do whatever I want to do. Now I can't take a selfie in the street. So for sure it affects, but how, I don't really have a concrete thing. Don't know, Mark, if you have something to say.
We are thinking collectively how to escape. Like this is
yes.
How to escape collectively.
Yes,
this is the only thing we could
how
work
to deal,
on.
Because I think
how to find a way together.
Yeah, because I mean we know of some initiatives who have been kind of you know, they had such a high taxation.
You're asking about such.
I'm asking, yeah, of course, about the structural issues. I'm not.
Okay.
You know.
Yes, for sure. It's big, but yeah.
Yeah. Okay. You don't have to say
no.
you feel that it's not.
No, I'm not feeling of anything. But the thing is, the situation is worse anyway. So, but the thing is, now yes, we Roofies suddenly we're thinking of. On paper, we will probably suspend the company on paper, but we're still working because of the taxation, the tax authority, for some reasons they are after us since a year and a half or something like this. I don't know. Yes, more than a year and a half they are after us. They ask every month or 2 months about new reports, and they came to us and all this stuff, and we had to move from our in December we moved from our place, and so it's complicated, yes, and also I know that this happens also with other companies or initiatives in Egypt. And also with individuals. That's why I was telling you that it affects all the people. And as Mark said, we are helping us we are collectively trying to deal with it. And we feel now that we need to be besides each other more.
Nedick, and what about you? I mean, what relation does such a project like yours have, first of all, to the Moroccan film industry, which is also big, actually, with an output now as big as, even if it's not as old as the Egyptian one, but now it's as productive as the Egyptian. And what is your relation, and how do you situate yourself and your project within that structure, and also, I mean, economically as well as politically? What are the
economically, we don't make any money films in actually anywhere. But in Morocco, there isn't even the structure for you to actually survive off of making films. Why even bother to work within that structure? For me, it's a question of not working with production companies and working outside, but using screening platforms like festivals, for example. I'm not going to exclude myself from festivals. I want the film to be seen. But besides that, I think working in what I call temporary film collectives, where you involve communities in the production process, is very important, because it's also a question of media literacy, and we currently in Morocco, I mean, in schools they don't teach anything about this kind of stuff, and yet images are being shot into our homes, into our heads all the time, and this is exactly how authoritarian or fascist ideologies come about. So involving communities is very important, and not necessarily working as like a sort of avant-garde group like in the 60s that is sort of separated from the community as a collective. So temporary collectives, and then sometimes working with people from the industry, bringing them in temporarily, and then letting them go after.
But when I attended the screening of your film in Agadir, it was very beautiful. You had the whole, well, how many were you, 25 or 30 almost?
Yes.
All of you standing in front of on the stage, presenting the film. But then during the discussion, one of your collaborators from Media was actually telling, or was very sad, because he said, well, everybody was waiting for the film to unfold a sort of, or to really facilitate the liberation of and to solve the political problem that is related to this, because until now the silver mine is working, and it is polluting the area, it is stealing the revenues of the possibilities and the potential of the people. So, and there was no solution so far. Some of them were really hoping the film might help to, can we say, put it like, liberate them, and so that there was this kind of sad note in the end that, yeah, what happens? What is the potential of liberation with such a collaborative?
At least most of the members of the community were quite conscious that a film by itself is not going to bring any sort of liberation, the expectation with most of the people was that the film would help galvanize collective memory in the future. There was already this sensation that the movement was starting to die, and last September the protest camp was done, which was correct. So only a few months after Agadir, and this has nothing to do with the film. These are larger political forces that led to that. But they knew it was going in that direction, and this was the 4th uprising against the mine in 30 years. So, and they look back at 1986 uprising, they look back at the 1996 uprising, they look back at the 2004 uprising, and they don't have any images. For them, this was something that would allow the next generation that would resist to have something to see, and something that would help construct that memory. And so, about the question of liberation, I don't see liberation or revolution as something that happens in this one moment, or this one, this grand moment like in Tahrir Square in Egypt, or these are very important moments, but that revolution happened long before those people came together. It happens in very small ways on a daily basis, and it's in that sense that cinema can be revolutionary in creating these kinds of spaces like this one. Momentarily here, maybe another moment there, someone watches it at home, it clicks, it leads to an idea, and they'll talk about that idea in a cafe. This is revolutionary. Just sitting down in a cafe and talking about Sisi is revolutionary. And a lot of people have this false perception that revolution is this, huge thing, and it's, I don't know to explain what I mean. I don't know if you've read...
completely. I agree completely, because the issue is the moment it gets institutionalized, like the Algerian one,
yeah.
it gets completely, oppressive. So
right.
there is this Deleuzian wonderful article about G, L like left, G comme gauche, where he says it's revolution, also devenir révolutionnaire, becoming revolution, that's revolution. And so what you are saying is exactly this. It's a process. And the moment it stops or it becomes an institution, it's gone. So.
Right, and in the film, when we were writing, actually we weren't writing, we were orating, if you want, because we weren't actually writing the script, we weren't sitting down and actually writing the film, and it was just a discussion like this, and everyone in the community, I noticed each person was, so you have a woman say, you should film us collecting herbs by the mountainside. One of the young men will say, you should film us fixing the pickup truck. And then another one of the women will say, you should film us making bread for the militants. And it goes, and it's actually these very small gestures. When you look at it, it's what they saw their role in the movement. That's what it was. So the woman who's making bread, and it's in the credits. It says daily bread. We actually have that credit. The woman who's making the bread sees that as her role in making this movement happen and in resisting. So even in the film, we try to reflect that. This process, this revolutionary process, it's the very small movements or gestures that accumulate, and that's what makes things revolutionary.
Thank you. A last comment, Mark, maybe on this issue of liberate potential collectives as an emancipatory potential before we open up to questions.
Yeah, I think being in a collective is originally it's for sure connected to do a political act, because also the government wants you to be alone, so they could easily get you and track you and trace you and whatever. So, and I think being working or acting collectively now in Egypt and in the Arab world in general, I think it's more important than even before, because it's like we lost everything. So we will never lose each other. So I think, and being disappointed and in depression and all this psychological damage that people have been going through in the last years, I think it's very important to work even on that collectively.
But Mark, I wanted, if you allow me, to have a more concrete answer, because you're making films. What is the real impact of the films that you are doing collectively? Either in small collectives, or what is that impact on onto others? Not just what are they doing? I mean, are these films? In the case of Amusu, it's pretty clear. At least it has a role to play for the community. They know they were empowered at least to preserve their own picture. But in your cases, because I mean, you have a collective that is more, if we want to say so, it's more, you want to assert something with regards to Alexandria, for example, in contrast to the Cairo as a monopoly. But also, what is your relation to your audiences, to people? What do your films, actually, whom do your films affect? That's more the concrete question about, because there is also aspect of liberation here.
Yeah, I think you could look at it from this way, but this is also problematic, to think how much you affected the audience, but it's something in the, you can say, in the core of the cinema in itself. Like when you are very popular, you lose something. So when you talk to everyone, yeah, you lose being specific, and when you are very specific, you lose a big part of your audience. So to evaluate how much our films have been affecting the audience, that's for me a hard thing to do. But we have been producing films that have been well received by the audience. How much they affected how the people think, I could not measure that. But what I could say is that we're still continuing, we're still struggling, we're still producing films in the same way we are doing, and it's getting bigger. Maybe that's a sign that what we are doing is important. But I think also the way we work is itself a political act in itself. So this is very important. Yeah, when you say, okay, Hadidi is even a cinematographer in a film, is he my partner or he is my employee? This is just to make the work relationship a partnership is a political and economical act dealing with the government, and they don't definitely want it to happen.
Absolutely, and breaking also the authorship idea is also a political act in itself. So I just wanted to make it a bit, kind of to, okay, to tease, okay. So please, if anyone has a question or a remark, comment, please feel free to join us. Yes, please. I think.
Is it
okay,
on? Yeah.
then here on top there was the last line also.
Thank you everyone for this talk. I just have a few things that I noted down that I wanted to ask, so I'm sorry if I say multiple things. In relation to authorship and knowing obviously that the rise of authorship in cinema got theorized in something that came even before world cinema, and world cinema came as then a sort of struggle or as a counter initiative to counter this idea of authorship. Can't collectives start thinking about a sort of manifesto in regards to credits and ownership of signing a film? So something like Dogma deciding not to have an opening credit or a finishing credit, to not have a film credited for one director or one DOP. And what is then the artistic value of being someone who worked on as a director of photography and not as a sound on it, but having the film signed as a collective with one name and not the names of each person who worked on each part of the film. And linking that to face censorship and prison, because you mentioned that. I mean, as you said, Mark, governments don't want you to be acting alone, because the more you are a collective, the more it's difficult to break you down. So maybe in that idea, if there is a credit that has a fictional name of this collective and not personal names of human beings, then that would make it easier for you to make more activist or more politically charged films without having to face the consequences of being incarcerated or censored in general. So that's another question. And last one, sorry. In regards to the division of labor, I think that, Viola, you talked about it, cinema has always been a collaborative field. I want to know what your regards is about economy. I think that we're disregarding it a little bit too much in regards to why, for instance, each job that you do on a film has a different kind of remuneration. If you are working as a director of photography, who decides who gets that amount of money, or as a director gets that amount of money? And linking that to funding, because can you actually get funding as a collective when you are applying for a project as a whole?
Generally, you can't get funding.
Yeah.
You can't.
Yeah, I mean...
In general.
No, maybe it's not just a question towards you, but maybe a question to a place like the Berlinale with the Talents, where they do workshops leading to things where they are pushing for authorship in a certain sense, of asking for a dossier that is presenting a script and a certain way that is formalized and then made into a certain format so everyone can have access to it.
Okay, who wants to take this question? Mark, would you like to comment?
Yeah, I just want to say that the credits part, I just love it. I totally agree. That's what we are talking about. I totally agree that we should work on this more, but this will take time. This will take time also to be at the moment accepted by the industry, and as you said, like to not send one name for a person doing something to the funding. That's impossible, as we know now. But yeah, for example, I just give an example that even co-directing is very problematic. Like even if you work on any project, why you are, it's like a big question mark why people could direct a movie together, and not only The Maestro, but all other movies that we worked with. Even when you like people could direct between coming from different countries, and which is even. Yeah, it's like clearly important that they do that. It's always refused, and always people look up from it. So you could not do it alone. That's why. So it's like a kind of trying to stop it. So I think the credits, it should be theorized more, written about it more, and and for sure it needs to be at a moment taking action towards it. And I'm happy that you mentioned that. About the censorship, it's more complicated than that. In Egypt. It's very hard. Now, if this is important to say now, at a moment in Egypt, when the film is problematic, it goes to the security. This was like maybe 5-6 years ago. Today, all
state security. So
all films go to the security. Yes. So there is people working as security people, and they are themselves from inside the apparatus of the intelligence and the secret police and all that. So they are reading your film, and so it's getting more. So it couldn't be as easy as you just don't put your name. For sure, well, there's a lot of tricks we do, like we don't say, it's just you need to take out some parts of the script and then do it and then debate about, this could be like 3 panels just about how to deal with censorship in Egypt. But it's very problematic. You could just send your script and be in jail like the day after, just like this. It's not a joke. And I just said these words. You look how Viola have been like teasing us to talk about it. I have been monitoring with my eyes all the audience. Okay, so I'm quite sure there is no Egyptian journalists. I'm just to make sure. Yeah. No. So it's not easy to be taken in a way that is against me or so. Yeah, but people looks okay, so I could talk. Even you. So, but that's it.
No, sorry. It doesn't work like that. We have another voice. So later, if there is some time, we can break that up. But
hi, I guess I just have a very practical question about strategies for collective working, because I think it's a very it's obviously a really good thing, but I know that there can definitely be difficulties, especially when people are coming from different backgrounds, privileges, points of view. And I just wondered if you had any practical strategies that you utilize to try and mediate that.
I don't think I have a practical strategy, but for me, it's very simple. Making a film, even individually, it's a battle against your ego. So you have to ask yourself why you're doing this collectively, and if you have an answer, you have to ask the next question is with whom, and are you able to deal with your ego against the film and against your partner or not. This is the thing, because it's a process. Working collectively, it's a process of learning how to listen. So this is if you're able to listen and deal with your ego, so you will do it. You can do it. It's very, very hard, but you have to put this in front of your eyes, that you have to listen and put a big possibility that maybe there is someone else has not better point of view, but more productive or more suitable for your film to you.
Nedick, in your case, because you had large numbers to...
Yeah, I don't think there's a secret to it. I think it's just, it's a question of democracy. Collectives are democratic projects, which is why they take on this that's why they're a danger, I think, to authoritarian, not only authoritarian regimes, but also companies and et cetera. But it's a question of talking. It's a question of talking for a long time, taking a long time to do that. But that's what democracy is. If someone were to come and just, if we were to have a discussion, should we leave this room? And then if I had the power to say, okay, let's leave the room, we all leave the room right now, right? But if I were to open the discussion about should we leave the room, well, the discussion can go on for a long time, right? And that's what democracy is about. It's about taking the time to think about these things, but that's what gives you better results. And yeah, it's just, for me, that's the key. And if we do it in cinema, it's supposed to be an experiment for how society should generally function in any domain. If architects were asking communities, how do you want your community to be built, we would have a better world, right? Same thing for engineers, but no, we have states and we have companies that just decide to do things, and cinema isn't alone in that. It's just a part of that system, right? You have huge companies that are very hierarchical. They don't allow for creativity to come from below. It's very authoritarian, very brutal, I think, and very stupid. And that's for me, it's about stupidity. And it's very violent, right? You don't allow people to express themselves. You have someone who has a lot of money, and they just decide, this is what I want to do. They go to sleep one day, they wake up, and they have a dream, and they decide they want to do something. But the rest of us don't get to have these dreams, right? We just have to go to work and listen to other people telling us what to do. But if we were to make a collective where we all discuss things together, then we're paving a way forward for, I think, what should be a better world. So discussion is so important. It can, yeah.
Hi. I wanted to ask about how do you translate the collective filmmaking experience into a collective audience experience, in a sense, especially in your countries, because I feel like festivals are very exclusive spaces, like they're financially inaccessible to many people, and you have to know how to navigate them. So if you could get away with it, how would you want to screen your films?
Yeah, I think there is. I think this is a hard question to reply to, but I could say there is other projects and other people also. So we are not everyone. So there are other people, other projects that are working on that. Like, for example, we have in Egypt, in Alexandria, a project that was called Cinema في كل مكان, that was taking the films.
Cinema everywhere.
Yeah, Cinema Everywhere. Yeah, Cinema Everywhere. It's a project with one of our friends. So he's taking films without any censorship agreements and just going to the coffee shops, to corners and places, streets, And just because this is also applicable, if everyone in a specific space, no one will inform the government, so you are safe. So in specific streets, specific coffee shops, and specific like very very low class restaurants or like different places, and it's all over Egypt. And filmmakers sometimes are there, and sometimes they just have the file and they show there. And I think this project, for example, was very impressive. And it's impressive that it worked, that people, you can say, connected to this kind of art house films and ask for more and more. But I think this part of how to make it function more on the audience in Egypt, for sure it's a hard part because of the security reasons and all that. But I think there is some projects now that happen and it functioned and it's continuing like Wagih, like last week, it's like this guy who is responsible of this project. He asked for a new tour like of 2020 all over Egypt, trying to show the films there. So and yeah, that's for example a way of doing it. Yeah.
Nedick, would you like to add something, Nedick?
So what we've tried to do, because in Morocco we really have the audience that I'm interested in is a rural audience, mainly because people in urban areas have some access to cinemas. So unfortunately, we don't have the money yet, but we're trying to raise the money to do a mobile cinema caravan in rural areas. We also are developing this idea called Tawzi'a Shabi, popular distribution, which is basically anyone can screen the film. They just send us, they just have to fill out a form either online or by paper. And we spread these especially through public university students who are coming from rural areas. So we screen the film in the university, and then we hand out these forms, and then anyone can and we send you a locked USB with the film and PDFs of the poster, so you can print and advertise like a little package. So this is an idea that we're working on, that we to reach the audience that we really want to reach, not just to stay in festivals and that's all.
Yes, please.
Can you please share some memories to explain backstage memories, for example, to explain collective working process? It may be funny, emotional, or a struggle that you overcome, anything to for us to maybe understand better. Maybe it's hard to maybe remember now any memory, backstage memory, but if something important that you can now tell us, would be great.
Well, this is maybe also a good a good question or call to close it also. I mean, if you want to take turns to answer this, and then we need unfortunately to end.
Actually, all the process was now when we look at it, it's always funny. So in the mice room, there's a lot of things, and also I have a picture. So I can't recall something specific now. We have this. There is this video on screen. No?
Okay.
Back,
I'm not
know.
because it's 1 o'clock already. So
okay.
I don't know if we. So maybe in the break, but we need to ask. I cannot tell.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, it's okay. So it's always funny because it's discussions a lot and talking a lot, and as I told you, we were sitting in this room, and maybe the funniest thing it's not funny, but it's really, I love the story that when we came to the music to do the music score for the mice room, it was really complicated to find a musician who can, who the six of us likes his music, and then he can accept, or she can accept to work without money, because at the moment we didn't have any money, and accept to work in this situation with six very young directors. So after a long search, we find a Russian musician. She was based at LA, and I've never met her. And we spent a whole year doing the music online with her, and she was really, really patient with us, and she was really nice. And actually, this also inspired me a lot, and I always tell this story because after this, we made when we came to the poster, we made the poster with a Polish graphic designer, and no one of us ever met her. And this is also, for me, a good example for how can you can think out of the box and find solution for this is also a collaboration. So because Anna Drubich, the music composer, she's now composing the music for a new film of one of our colleagues. So so this is also a kind of collaboration, so it's this thing. It's for me an inspiration, very nice thing.
Okay, thank you. But very quick, because we need to finish. We are over the time already.
I guess the story that comes to mind is it was a day where we had to shoot in the village, and the protest camp is a sort of like a liberated zone where the police don't come to the protest camp area. And the village, though, it's very controlled. There's police, there's like spies all over the place. So, and the film is all supposed to be still framed, so no shaky cameras, no like hidden camera. You really have to set a tripod and the whole thing. So, so what I had two friends of mine that were journalists who were really obviously European, so they attract attention, blonde. And we set them as decoys in the village. So we were hiding, and then we told them, okay, just walk along that road and just keep going straight. And there you just had these two white people walking in this road, and you had the spy following them. And so the village became ours, so we could take out the whole apparatus, all the equipment, and we had the time to film and actually set our frame and everything. And then, but the great thing about having the whole community involved is then the community is the counterintelligence. So they bring you information about where the spies are. So once he got the idea, okay, I need to stop following these two, they're not taking me anywhere, he came back to the village. So, but before he came back, someone already came and told us that he was coming back. And that's when the shopkeeper we were shooting next to told us, come and hide in the shop. So we're, me and the sound guy, behind the counter, and the spy is buying whatever he wants to buy, like right above our heads. Anyway, but yeah, that's. But yeah, this is the collective. This is the advantage of working with collectivity, is that you have multiple eyes and ears, and if you feel equal to everyone, you don't have a boss to hate. I would, yeah. Anyway, I'm going to keep going for a long time.
Okay. Last words. Thank you.
Quickly, yeah. I will not pick any stories, but what I could say is the kind of moments I always hold and remember are the fragility moments, like when we all doubt that there is a film, or we all doubt that what we are doing is useful, or it will be coming. Like all these very, very fragile moments when we are all disappointed. I think in this moment, it's like, yeah, if you are alone, I think you will not continue. You'll never continue. But because of the availability of this collectivism, it functions and it works. One of the other kind of moments I really love or like, when someone from the film industry come to us and say, but this is important. All what is happening in Alexandria is really, really important, and all these words. And you know very much that, like years after, this specific guy who was really, really making fun of it, but everything changed now, and now he is talking about it as an important thing to talk about. So yeah, these are the two kinds of things I remember.
So thank you so much, Nedick, Mohammed, Mark, for this wonderful panel, and thank you all for being here and for listening and speaking also. And of course, I'm sure you can continue some of the discussion outside after we clear the room. Thank you so much.
Thank you.